Good evening, everybody, and for another session from the Wise Asylum. How are you doing on this lovely day? What a lovely week we've had. It's been amazing. I've loved the weather, and I'm pretty sure you have as well. So climate change, I'm with it. I love it, mate. Keep it going. Keep it going. Get bigger cars, bigger ones, bigger engines, you know? Make some more pollution. We need more climate change. Anyway, that's that out of the way. How are you doing? Hello, Mute, Debbie, police by consent, hello. I don't think we know you. Cause, howdy, disciple of the Messiah. Good afternoon. How are you, Philly? Hello there, disciple of the Messiah. Good afternoon over there, is it? Great. Paul, hello Paul, and Paul, and Debbie, how are you doing? My sweat has been sweating. Oh, it's been lovely, hasn't it? Hasn't it just been good? Don't we just love this hot weather? Whatever the fruit bats down at Media Centre and Chalker Westminster have to say about it, we love it. A rather. So how's things with you guys? I hope it's good. So, what a mess I've made this week. So I thought, my camera weren't working. I haven't worked all week. I thought, right, sod this. I'll upgrade to Catalina. So I did. Now my iMovie doesn't work. My iPhoto doesn't work. I can't download a new one. I don't know what I've done, but I think I've probably cocked it up as usual. But never mind. And Disciple of Zion says climate change has nothing to do with the weather. Exactly. We're taking the Mickey. We are taking the Michael. Of course, us little humans are certainly not capable of controlling the weather. They can mess about with it in bits and parts, but obviously, as we can see, there's a reaction somewhere else. Taken from one, it goes somewhere else. So it's manipulation rather than control, I would suggest. But a lot of it is to cover, I think, what's natural. There's a lot of natural changes going on. I mean, if we're getting the new sun, that's obviously the driver of climate, as we know. So it's obviously going to be having an effect down here. So, yeah, what a week. Have you had a bad week or a good week? Is that good or bad? Hey, Matt. Hell, good evening, me old China. Slipknot, how you doing, mate? You alright? Sound is good, thank you for that, matey. Are you trained? Caught you live for a change? Detention. Detention is the only thing that's going to sort this out for you, young lady. Debbie, Stafford's farts could be a factor, to be fair. Stafford's, is that your dog? Is that your dog or your husband? Ooh. So, Peyton Lee, how are you doing, me old tinker? How are you? You alright, cocker? Hello. And evening all. So, evening to everybody. Anyway, I'm a bit vexed at the minute because, you know, I get the forces news as you do. We've now got 3 fruit bat crap-hats moved into positions of power over our military, and they keep on calling it the UK military. Now, what is the UK? The UK is corporation. Did you know, you soldier boys and girls out there, that you're actually working for a corporation, not Britain, not England, not Scotland? Did you know this? UK. Okay, they can't be more blatant than that. It's up to you to see the game. It's not good, because what we've got is the forces, our soldiers, are being lied to by the command level, who are talking absolute pish about the Ukraine. And I mean pish. Utter nonsense is being talked about what's going on in Ukraine and Russia directly to our soldiers. So that's not good. I don't like it. We're going to explore that slightly. But first, let's just have a look at what's really going on in Ukraine. So, it's not looking good, and I'll tell you why I don't like it. what I'm seeing now with Putin, it's showing signs of a very similar thing to what Hitler did. Kick it off, get excited, expand it. Okay, so Putin's being very naughty. But of course, you've got to remember, there's no war ever been started since the banking system was set up that isn't controlled by the banking system. So both sides, all sides, are controlled by the same. It's been the case since the Bank of England was set up. Or probably even the Venetian Bank. Way, way back in the midst of time. But war does not happen until both sides are controlled. The days of battling for different tribes against each other for land was well gone. That was pre-Crusade time, so that's gone. Bank system's been running it, wars are created. So both sides are controlled. So Putin's doing nothing that he's not being told to do by, ultimately, the priesthood. So the fighting now in the Donbass has got really bad. You know, it's getting quite vicious now. The Ukrainians are falling over themselves. All this weaponry that's being sent over there is being sold on the dark web. So it's just a laundering operation, this war. You know, all drug money, black ops, smuggling, organ trafficking, all this stuff. The money from it is now being laundered and put into the mainstream through this conflict in the Ukraine. So it's getting a lot worse, and Vlad is impaling like you wouldn't believe, and he's using militias, you know what I mean, he's using the Wagner group, all these Chechen and all these warriors that are fighting for Vlad in the Ukraine. But what's more important is the Russians have took over the biggest nuclear power plant in the world in the Ukraine. They've got that. And the dumbass Ukrainians are bombing the shit out of it. Now, at first, everybody were being told that the Russians were actually bombing the nuclear power station because this nuclear power station supplies all its electricity to the Ukraine. So, naturally, you could believe that the Russians bombing the nuclear power station, but far from it, it's not. They've took it over. The Ukraine are bombing it. They're bombing it, well, obviously, because they need to keep everybody on side, the West, etc., that actually something's being done. The Ukraine's actually doing something worthwhile. So it's just a load of garbage. Now the UN they met on Thursday, Security Council, and not a single party there disagreed that it was in fact Ukraine bombing the shit out of this nuclear power station. So this is the propaganda that's going on everywhere, and this is also being given and handed down to our soldiers through their own internal media outlets, Forces News being one of them. Now, interesting with Putin, what I don't like, because he's coming to the end of phase 2 now, basically, which is to take the Donbass and the eastern Ukraine. But now he's actually recruiting more and more soldiers in Russia. So he's obviously getting planned to expand this and move it further forward into the Ukraine, which I said at the beginning, a bit like Hitler set off as an hero. Hitler was an hero. He was voted in as an hero. All the children, the youngsters that were coming up to leaving school age and been pre-programmed to worship this man, and they became the brown shirts and did exactly what he wanted. And you've got Putin being raised up as some kind of hero, not a warmongering pig like the rest of them, which is exactly what he is. You've also got, there's a guy called Marius now who claims to be an American Marine, praising everything about Putin and what he's doing, mainly in the sense that he's actually carrying out the war in perhaps the most unabsurd way, if you can possibly do that in a war, in relation to civilians, etc. He's not going all out to bomb civilians, which is direct contradiction and opposite to what NATO do. You know, NATO go out their way to bomb civilians. I think Bomber Harris set that scene there back in the old Second World War. So, in sense that if you can do war in a better method, Putin is actually carrying out this war a lot better than NATO would, because he's actually not trying to destroy the infrastructure, and he's also not going out of his way to annihilate civilians. But what he is doing is holding referenda on the 11th of September in the areas that the Russians have took, and he's going to ask all the civilians there, do they want to join Russia? Which is fair comment, not a bad thing. That would certainly intensify the support you're getting for Putin and everything that he's doing in the old Ukraine. So that's not good. I don't like that. But that said, it's more that this garbage propaganda is being shoved down the neck of our soldiers. You know what I'm saying? So they really are exciting our boys up to get ready for war. But, as I've said, I would keep your eyes on what's going on in Israel, because that's where it's going to kick off. You've just had now Salman Rushdie's got knifed. Perfect timing, of course. And you've got Sunak now, so he's showing his colours. Buckling up the arse of Israel by making a big fuss about this, how terrible Iran is. And they must be dealt with, and it must be... So they're moving this against Iran now, you can see that. As I said, the Ukraine thing mainly is just to put the borders back to what they were originally, which is Poland basically run half of it, and then the eastern side was actually Russian territory. So he's just moving it back to that. I am worried about what Putin seems to be doing in recruiting more people, which makes it look like he's going to up the game. So that's a bit worrying. But Israel are doing all sorts of nonsense. You know, they bomb the shit out of Palestinians. But Iran. This now, with this nonsense with Salman Rushdie, he's going to get thrown all over the show to remind everybody that the Muslims are demented and you can't talk. It sends without him having a mental fit. It's just pushing all this back into the mix, reminding everybody that nobody likes each other, we all hate each other, and, you know, the say-so of Childcare Westminster and these three crap-at new numpties being stuck into our High Command, which we'll have a look at in a minute. As soon as they say, yeah, let's go, everybody's going to be excited to send off your offspring to go and die for Zion. So there we go, that's what's going on. But let's just look at this nuclear power station, because, you know, it's everybody shits themselves about nuclear power, don't they? They believe that everybody's going to die if there's a nuclear thingy. But let's be honest. Oh, we got fireworks. Oh well, never mind. So, well, fireworks, nuclear. Well, it might just be in perfect time, actually. So if you just have a look at this, I put together quite a while ago, and it was put together by a guy called Gale and Windsor, who was really high up in American nuclear energy systems back in the day. And basically he was asked a simple question: how dangerous is a nuclear plant? And his reply was, a nuclear reactor plant is just a way to boil water. That's the cleanest, neatest, most economical way to boil water you have ever seen. So it's basically saying it's just another means of boiling water, basically, which is producing the energy. And so in my estimation, nuclear reactors should be insured under the same insurance policy as any other steam boiler plant power generating plant. And to have special consideration under the Price-Anderson Act means the insurance industry have already paid off the Congress so that they can have a rip-off, charging ever higher and higher interest premiums, total coverage much greater for non-existent risk. So he's basically saying it's no more dangerous, is a nuclear power station, than your old school big boiler power stations. He says, Gale and Windsor has travelled and lectured all over America. So this is going way back when he did this. And he's spoken on national talk radio and made several videos exposing the misunderstood issues of nuclear radiation. He shows that the fears of radiation have been exaggerated to scare people, so a few powerful people can maintain total control of the world's most valuable power resource, which nuclear is. It's the cleanest by far. You're not eating coal, you're not burning anything, and you get a huge amount of electricity. Now there's the video where he goes through it. He's eating plutonium to show you that until it's actually weaponized, plutonium isn't radioactive, doesn't do you any harm at all, and that he used to swim in the cooling water for the reactors. So it's not, there's no radiation involved, is what he's basically saying. You have to weaponize plutonium and uranium to shift it into a weapon system where you do get then some radiation fallout, but not from all these explosions, which, you know, if you've ever studied nuclear technology, you would know already. He added that when asked about the possibility of an atomic explosion at a nuclear plant, He said, as far as an atomic explosion would be, no way. So it wouldn't be an atomic explosion. And I've just put the above video is essential for individuals to understand the world of nuclear energy. He says the revolutions around plutonium itself are important, yet Galen also presents the background for what is the foundation of the new world's financial and energy control system under the climate catastrophe that they're pushing now. So what he's basically putting forward is the first move to get you ready for this garbage climate so they can nick all our money was to install the health and safety. And basically in his video, what he's explaining to you is that they began with the nuclear industry. And that what they were putting forward as new health and safety rules was based entirely on fantasy. He says he rebuffs the future generation's deformity from radiation contamination and states that if one does become affected from radiation sickness, it's the symptoms are likened to measles. He says he also states that no nuclear waste has ever been deposited in the oceans, which again is a prime example of a deception that serves the falsified climate change script, which means we are responsible for the change in climate in relation to our carbon emissions, methane emissions, etc., etc. It's total garbage, is basically what he's saying. He says that lead is not a metal that is soluble in the human body. Well, health and safety have made a big play on that, haven't they? The same with asbestos. Now, the blue asbestos that they used to use for fire retention in the old buildings is rather dangerous, but your grey asbestos isn't. If it is, I'd have been dead because we used to eat it. Well, not quite eat it, but we used to like blowing it up on fires. And I've fallen through many a garage roof, jumping on them and gone through the asbestos, full of dust in there. I'm not dead. But one of the most important notes I got off that was an auntie who we were talking about the asbestos and health and safety, and she just said that when I worked in the mill, there were one part of it there that were full of asbestos dust all the time, and that if she ever found herself working in that area, her chest were bad for a while. But as soon as she came out of that, she was fine, and she lived to a merry old age, late into her 80s, and certainly didn't die of any problems with her lungs. So that does support the idea that this asbestos thing is just another method to push in this health and safety by getting you lot to make claims. It gives it a financial impetus, doesn't it, to make it real, and then they can legislate on it and get into your trade and tell you what to do and make a fortune off you joining these bodies that they set up, you know. So he's saying, in this sense, the health and safety regulations across the globe is a fantasy, a birth of the corporate empire, and it's enough to create a system that creates the entire paradigm in which you're limited and in which you're existing. So they're setting the limits of the paradigm that you're allowed to live in based on all this health and safety. He says, Galen Wins, as a nuclear physicist of renown, he worked at and helped design nuclear power plants in Hanford, WA, Oak Ridge, TN, Morris, San Jose, California, Wilmington, and among his positions of expertise will be to take charge of measuring and controlling the nuclear fuel inventory and storage. So he had all the data you could ever have in relation to a nuclear power plant within his grasp, because that was his position. Well worth a look, that video. Well worth a watch, indeed. I would definitely suggest that you have a look at that. Now, I just need to get in here. I need to just shift. Hang on. So I have to... So if we get back to the army chief that we talked about not long ago, and let's just have a look at what garbage is being pumped out to our soldiers. Boom, 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 where are we? Why is that not coming up? So that should be coming up. Oh, it's up. Okay, so it's up. So you can see that. Okay, so it says, Army Chief warns of Russian Army moral decay in speech to junior soldiers. So this is what he's saying. This is the kind of stuff this new crap act, General Sir Patrick Saunders, that we discussed before, is telling our boys. Remember, Now they're using here the term British Army, but they keep flipping and use the term UK. So the head of the British Army has told junior soldiers that they are joining the army, mobilising to stop the spread of war in Europe as the Russian army suffers moral decay. Absolute garbage. The Russians are absolutely annihilating their opposition in the Ukraine, annihilating it. You know, it's a false idiom. So this is when I said before, these commanders are not operating for nation. They're not operating for you. These guys are fully paid, no-hide judge operators. So they're all operating for the 21st degree, Scottish Rite, Freemasonry. Okay, the no-hide judge, the Prussian knight. Okay, and you know now how important the term Prussian is in relation to these secret society military that controls NATO, controls Russia, controls China, controls all the militaries on the goddamn planet. It says Chief of the General Staff, General Sir Patrick Saunders, was the VIP guest as 500 junior soldiers graduated from the Army Foundation College in Harrogate. The new recruits passed out in front of families and friends as the CGS remained, reminding them of their broader purpose of being ready to fight and win wars on land. The Army Chief said success on battlefields depends upon the motivation, passion and tenacity of those involved, shown by the above brave Ukrainian forces defending their own land. The Ukrainian forces are getting annihilated, folks. Do not believe any garbage that you're being told, because all the weaponry that's being sent over there is being sold on the dark web by Zelensky and his mafia. Remember, the Zionists took over through Obama. Obama set all this up, starting in 2010, and the Zionists took over completely in 2014, and then began to murder and torture the Russians in the eastern Ukraine, which is where Putin's gone in. So this is what's been going on. There's all these labs, that we've talked about, well, 40 odd of them, that they found in there with insidious stuff going on. So this was set up by the Obama administration, which, of course, Vice President was Joe Biden. Yeah, Nutty Joe. So, you know, it all follows through and follows on. He says, so General Sir Patrick finished by telling the latest cohort of junior soldiers that he's proud to serve in the same army as each and every one of you. Yeah, you don't serve, pal. You're just full of shit, and you're a crap hat to boot. So this is what I was saying about these commanders. All of you need to get a grip. These are not your friends. These guys are working for the corporations. Now, UK, when they use that term, and the next incumbent change in this hierarchy, the term UK is used. Now, if we go back to the Second World War, and nobody's going to disagree that Benito Mussolini, an Italian fascist, would know what he was talking about when asked the question to define fascism. That's what he was asked. And his response was, I'll paraphrase of course, that when the corporations merge with your domestic system, fascism is in place. So these bunch of Johnny-come-latelys are the Nazis, the fascist regime, telling you how it is, getting you ready to go fight. Not, I would say, in Russia, although that could be a second front that they set off, but they want to mobilise you in readiness for what Israel's going to kick it. Israel's going to kick it. They see Russia as Magog. It's the Magog war, which is complete garbage, because Edom, when you get back into the history, is Judah, the priesthood. That's who they are. So, you know, these things need to be taken on board, especially by our soldiers, because you're the ones that have been blagged into this absolute garbage. Now we have a second fruit bat. Look at this. Meet Lieutenant General Sharon Nesmith, new deputy head of the British Army. A bird. You've got a bird. No, it's just not on. I don't care what anybody says, alright? Lieutenant General Sharon Nesmith has been appointed Deputy Chief of the General Staff, becoming the first female British officer in her role. Look at that face. Good grief. If you said boo to her on top of the stairs, she shit herself. She is also the first female army officer to hold the rank of Lieutenant General and is the highest ranked female officer in the British Army history. Lieutenant General Nesmith begins a new role after the appointment was approved by the Queen. Well, that's the Queen of the persons, remember. The UK corporate system. Alright? In April she was done. Growing up in Northumberland, Nesmith commissioned into the Royal Corps of Signals in 1992. Spent many of her early years in Germany, the Balkans and Iraq. Nesmith is a graduate of the High Command and Staff Course and Major Projects Leadership Academy. Her service includes time as Colonel Capability Plans in the Army Headquarters, the head of Manning as a Brigadier, and the Director of Personnel as a Major General. She's a goddamn secretary. Right? She's a secretary. She's provided information and communication services, command support and capability development in support of the Allied Rapid Reaction Corps, UK Joint Force Headquarters. You seeing this? Can you see when they put this in? Now, I know we've gone through, if you're new to this channel, you're not going to understand just how important the use of words are when these fruit bats put together, such as this. So they give you the British Army so you're all comfortable and happy, but they slip it in the UK Joint Force Headquarters. Fascist, corporate, United Kingdom corporation, so they're telling you. They're telling you. And then it says, MOD said, Minister of Defence, DE means no, Ministry of No Fence. Because they're not fencing for England or Scotland or Wales, are they? The British Isles are not being fenced. In fact, they're about to move our fence out of the nation, are they not? While they militarise these fruit bats in uniforms that call themselves police officers. Yeah? You see how it's going? Major General Nesmith became the Army's first female officer to command a 2-star level. Upon her appointment to General Officer Commanding, Army Recruiting and Initial Training Command in January 2021. In her role as GOC, she oversaw the recruitment and training of more than 35,000 regular and reserve officers and soldiers across 280 courses each year, the Army said. So this is where you get in your don't bully, you need your safe space, and this is soldiers talking about. You can understand why the majority of the British soldiers crap ass. They'll go for this. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, I know I'm getting excited, but I am getting excited. Not only is Lieutenant General Nesmith Master of Signals, a Colonel Commandant for the Royal Electrical and Mechanical, so she's a glorified electrician as well. A secretarial electrician. But also serves as Vice President for Army Football and Army Rugby. For God's sake. Girls, when are you going to get a grip and realise that I grew up listening to wives scrape their eyeballs out about how their husbands went out drinking, were obsessed with football, blah de blah. What are you girlies doing? You're playing football. You oh, God's sake, you're copying everything that your mother hated. Never mind. Anyway, that's enough for that malarkey. But you can see another fruit bat, crap hat, secretary, up there at the top of the game in this fascist command level, controlling the Army and the Navy, and that's how it's going. The RAF, which not got right many planes, not enough to put on our carrier HMS QE2, so we had to nick them. We've had to nick the planes. If you see any pictures of QE2 today, the aircraft carrier, they've nicked them planes. No, they're not ours. We don't own them. We had to pinch them, which is what they used to teach us to do if you didn't have anything. Anyway, so that's that little nonsense. Now, what else did I have here? Oh, now this gets a little bit interesting. So that's my rant. That's my rant over. Where are we? Now then. Boomf. Now, you know how we brought in the international covenants that they've got going on? And there's a few interesting things here. We've also got a PDF. Because the International Court of Justice is only there for states to bring cases, which I didn't know. So that is, I'm going to have to look at that a bit more deeply to see how these covenants that we've discussed can actually operate. But this is interesting in and of itself. It says jurisdictions. Uniform Commercial Code, which is UCC, you're aware of. The ICJ, which is the International Court of Justice, also recognises the use of the UCC as private international commercial law pertaining to governments, quasi-government agencies, regulators, banks, institutions, corporations, as well as private and public individuals. Since the Geneva Convention of 1930, the use of statutory and legislative law is currently under suspension due to the bankruptcy provisions of said UCC Article 1. And of course, we've all been bankrupt since 1933. Yep. Which is when your birth certificates were traded. This is how they've nicked your estate. Because you're all running around on person. Okay? This is what they've done. We know this. If you're new to the game, to this channel, you may want to go back and just seek out first the entry of birth title to set you off on coming to understand the difference between man, male, female, and person. Okay? It's important. So, it says, thus, no commercial entity, such as the types listed in the paragraph above, has legal right to enforce any claims against living men and women. Okay? Did you get that? No commercial entity, such as those types listed in the paragraph above, that's banks, government agencies, regulators, corporations, as well as private and public individuals, they cannot, they can't use this against a man, a living man. Now it says woman. We're going to investigate woman in a little bit as well, because the original term is man, male, female. So man describes both male and female. This woman, as we'll have a look at in a bit, is an invention of the priesthood in order to shift them into patriarchy. Okay? It is the entire... So now we're going to revisit Adam and Eve. We've looked at Adam and Eve, how it symbolises Cain, Abel, Cain being the straw man, killing the able man. So that's another shift on able man to person. We've investigated and looked at the symbolism in relation to that. But we can also look at the Adam and Eve story as the commencement and beginning for the structure of the patriarchal system, whereby the females are put beneath the male, whereas previous to that, the sacred feminine was upheld by the male. That was the male's role. So it was equal terms in some sense. Now, you go back to the Britons, the tribes, they were matriarchal, and the queen basically owned the land, and she chose from among her greatest warriors a king whose job was to protect the land. So that's how the old Britons tribes, the British Isles tribes, operated. So this is the Keltoi, that today they call the Celts, the Scythian tribes, all these that basically us white honkies come from. So there's a major difference between man, male, female, and woman. Woman is a completely different animal, and we'll get into that in a minute. Anyway. In other words, in any given court claim, the real party of interest is never revealed. Only their bankrupt commercial quasi-representatives or representative are named on court documents. The real party of interest in any given claim from the county courts leading up to the high courts can only be secret creditors of the international global bankruptcy, of which some 214 plus countries and their registered citizens are in deficit. These creditors are known by the ICJ-ICC to be the main shareholders of the world's top 12 banks. So the world's top 12 banks here are presented to us by the International Court of Justice as being the Rothschilds. Barclays, largest in the world. Now remember, Barclays was set up by the Quakers. Their symbol was the locust, so it was a plague. They weren't hiding it. So anybody that thinks the Quakers were anything other than greedy pigs, you might want to think again. Okay, so the Barclays is the largest holding bank in the world. You've got the Rockefellers, which is National Westminster, the NashWest, not Chase Manhattan as presumed. So NatWest is the Rockefeller thing. That's the big monster. No American bank is top 12 as Citibank is not controlled by Americans any longer. Warburg, SBC, Warburg, Lord HSBC. Okay, so Warburg is HSBC. Brown, Harriman is Citibank and Bush, so that's Bush. Bush are tied into that, the Bush family. Bundy is Credit Suisse. Vanderbilt is a French bank. Goldman Sachs is Goldman Sachs Israel Ferez, which is a French bank. Lehman Brothers, which is Lehman Brothers, again. Aldrich, which is a French bank. And Bilderberg Credit Lyonnais, which is, and Clinton's involved. Okay? And if you, there's a reference there, www.webspawner.com, users beauftragt. So there you go. The UCC, therefore, is the only body of commercial law that allows bankrupt entities to operate, and for a limited period only. So this is where I've said to you before, all our governments are operating under administration. Bankruptcy administration. Their job as the administrators is to take as much money off us as they can to settle the debt of the private corporation, the United Kingdom government. Yeah? Limited. To keep that going, the bigger banks have to always ensure that our governments get into further debt. So, the 2008 bailouts, we went into debt for it. Yeah, all this 5G they're putting up everywhere, everything that's just happened on this experiment that ends March 31st next year, all our money purchasing all this stuff is now added to the debt of the United Kingdom government, UK government, UK Army, UK Navy. You getting it? You get in the game, okay? So this is what they're doing. It is in the interest of the ICC to set up, provide and execute programs for redemption. So what they've done to save money, they said originally, is we owned our domestic systems. Before Thatcher, all our energy, airlines, transport, communications were owned by our state. We employed ourselves in those mammoth companies, so all the tax that were being generated by paying you that worked in them was coming back to the state. It all comes back in. Once you privatise these systems, they put the money up and the money's going out of the country. It's going out to shareholders, which of course we know are BlackRock and Vanguard, amongst others. So this is fascism. As a system, fascism is a political system. That's what it is. And it's in place and it's been in place. And Thatcher kicked it off like a good one, privatising our infrastructure. Now, of course, through Blair, all our other departments in our civil system have been corporatised, outsourced to private corporate outsourced providers. A lot of them are charities and trusts, so that you can't get any data or information as to what's going on with our money, as they consistently put up the prices and everything. They've nicked our council properties and put them into trust now. They're kicking out the natives and bringing in and housing all these immigrants, who, as we've explored, are components of the occupation of this nation by the British Empire. British Empire being the East India Companies, being the Venetian banking system, the Committee of 300. Ultimately, the chief Aryan bloodlines running the whole show, for which the Rothschilds are nothing but the court financiers, which is why they appear to be in everything. They're not their own man. They're part and parcel of this super system. So it says, it is in the interest of the ICC to set up, provide and execute programs for redemption, not just for the arrest and imprisonment of government and banking criminals, but also to provide immunity and protection for those that are negatively affected by the latter. So when you're going to these pseudo-star courts, it's all about charging more money off you, the citizen, to pay off these debts of your government. Okay, that's what it's about. Finding you on the street, taking your money, putting you on the road instead of and removing you from the highway. Again, ties you into these contracts on person. It's the trust that's tied into these. It's your trust that requires a license. Man doesn't require any licenses. It doesn't need any of this nonsense. All these rules and regulations are what all the corporate institutions and employees have to operate under. If you're on benefits, you're an employee of the bankrupt government. You know what I'm saying? If you've contracted with it in any way, you're an employee. If you've got a pension off the government, you're an employee. You're all going to dance to this garbage because you're all employees of it. And you didn't even know. Now, if I can just... where are we now? So if I can just... Oh, wait a minute. Do you want to have a little look at this? Here we go. There we go. Okay. Why has it done that? Right. Transition that out. That's it. Now, I just knock that off and pull this down, and I can operate with it. I can have a look at this. So this is the International Court. History and role of the court. So this is what I said before. I'm not sure. We might have to do a bit more investigation to this. Because it says, the International Court of Justice is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. Its seat is at the Peace Palace in The Hague. It began work in 1946 when it replaced the Permanent Court of International Justice, which had functioned in the Peace Palace since 1922. It operates under statute largely similar to that of its predecessor, which is an integral part of the Charter of the United Nations. The court has a dual role: to settle in accordance with international law and legal disputes submitted to it by states. And it says contentious function. Now, I only got these just before we come online, so as I said, they're going to need a little bit more investigating. To give advisory opinions on legal questions referred to it by duly authorised UN organs and agencies. Sources of applicable law. Now, just looking at that now, just coming to mind, all persons come under this. So, I'm not sure why they've had to specify states. So it does need a bit more investigation. Sources of applicable law. The court decides in accordance with international treaties and conventions in force, international custom and general principles of law, and as subsidiary means judicial decisions and the teachings of the most highly qualified publicists. Proceedings. Only states may be parties in contentious proceedings before the court. The court is competent to entertain a dispute only if the states concerned have accepted its jurisdiction in one or more of the following ways. By the conclusion between them of special agreement to submit the dispute to the court. Well, let's not get into that, but let's look at what we've explored recently in the 1998 Human Rights Act, which is the problem here on Blighty, because it incorporates the European Convention on Human Rights, which is what's preventing us kicking out these fruit bats that are pulling up on your beach while you're sunbathing in this hot weather. Now, back in the 80s and 70s, if we'd have been on the beach and a boatload of foreigners turned up on the beach and started waltzing about, they'd have been flat on their back, arrested by the public. We wouldn't have waited for these fruit bats called police, who are the very force that give these people the paperwork to say they're not illegal. Police are a private company working for the fascist UK bankrupt government. You can see the picture? Yeah? So I'm a bit perturbed by this only states. I'm not sure what that actually means. It's going to need a little bit more looking into, to be honest. So the president of this is John E. Donoghue, United States of America, and Vice President Kirill Gevorgyan, Russian Federation. Can you see what I'm saying about war? Yeah? It's garbage. That's all war, that there's two sides. But all you soldiers are being pulled up for this because it's all about what's going to hit Iran. Okay, this is what's about. You know, and between Israel and Iran, this is where it's going. They're militarising everything for that nothing else. So then you've got judges, you've got a plethora of fruit bats from all parts of the old world there: Australia, Japan, Germany, Lebanon, Jamaica, India, Uganda, China, yeah, Somalia, Morocco, France, Slovakia. Somalia, you know, they can't even sort out their own pirates over in Somalia. And the registrar, Philip Gautier, Belgium, which you would expect, would you not, be in the United Nations. So there's a list of pending cases, which again shows that these are states. You've even got Azerbaijan in there, you know, all these countries, Myanmar, Gambia, Guatemala, they're all using it, Palestine, Iran, you know, they're all tied into this International Court of Justice. Yet we've still got war. They're controlling everything. It's all fully and utterly controlled by the fruit bats, making up these bankrupt governments. You know, this is where we're at. This is where we're at, folks. And we need to start coming to terms with this before the anchors all off into go and die for the priesthood. So, anyway, I've ranted that. That's gone. What are we, 47 minutes? Let's see what you guys are jonging on about. Let me just find you. Where did I leave off? Good evening to everybody there. Let's have a look. Disciple of the Blessed Mother, thank you, Jesus. Okay. Well, that's an interesting thing, isn't it? I don't know whether you catch the Archaic's latest, which is interesting because I got sent a video about how important the 30-degree measure is in relation to the calendars and time, which again is Egyptian. It all comes off the Egyptian stuff. And then I watched some of Jason's stuff today, and he's reciting a book that he's only just come across, and he's pretty much talking about the same kind of stuff here again, so that's good. We'll get onto that in a minute. It's okay. Every week, good week. The other half blame him for climate change. Yeah, is it him fighting? Outrageous. Does he put your head under covers when he does it? I don't know. Fabulous week. Even did a live on Facebook showing off that. I saw that. I seen it. I saw it. Sounds suspicious like Ukraine, UK rain. Well, yeah. Yeah, but Obama set all that up, and Biden. This war in Ukraine was started by Obama, the fruit bat. Married to a fella with a bigger cock than he's got. You can see that in her dress, in each dress, you know. Good luck with the new place. Yeah, good luck. Are you talking there? Yeah, fascism. Precisely. It's a political system. That's what it is, fascism. It's you know, you've got democracy, you've got communism, you've got all these different political systems. Well, fascism is another system. And its essence is that it's not control. It removes all your national laws from governing you and puts you into the hands of the corporations. And the corporations have got one thing: profit. So if they can bankrupt your government, then it's never-ending profit, isn't it? Never-ending profit. So that's how you've got to look at this stuff. And fascism is in place, people. You're all under it. Chechnya Kadyrov do a photo op where he was said to be in Ukraine, but allegedly at the petrol station he took a picture doing his prayer in front of didn't operate in Ukraine. The whole war there is garbage, but Russia is kicking ass. It's kicking the living daylight. It's not, forget this nonsense. And you know, the majority of fighting is actually being done by the militias. It's mainly an artillery war going on in there. That's basically how it's being fought. But the combat's being carried out by the Eastern Ukrainian militias and a group calling itself the Wagner Group. So they're trying to copy Red Machine a bit there, aren't they? What's going on? But you soldier boys, you need to get a grip of it. You're being lied to from every orifice of your command level. No different than what they did in the First World War when they convinced our ancestors that they had to go and kill our brother Germans. So You know, it's the same game. Well, we know what happened there, didn't they? They killed 1 million of them, some in a day. We were surrendering 1914 by the end of the year. England was surrendering. We'd lost far too many. The Rothschilds came in, blagged it by saying, we'll get America in. You can win the victory, but the British government had to be in support of the venture called Israel. That's what tied us in. That's why this country's tied into it. It's not the country, it's the government. And through the secret societies, mainly Freemasonry, the entire Protestant massive sucked in back to the Old Testament. And we're going to get into that in a minute because it's quite interesting. So, not my shot, okay, chat amongst yourself. Israel, Putin's there as well. Well, Putin, how about Lubavitch? We've discussed it. How about Lubavitch brought Putin up? Yeah, every president since Nixon has signed every year Education Day, which puts America in full support of Israel. Well, all nations have this set up. They all do it and they have to sign it every year. On your behalf. Because you bankrupt assets of the UK government. That's why. Anthony says, good evening, Sean. Managed to get on the chat, but according to the system, my browser can't play the video on my laptop, so off to watch on my phone. They took another video down of mine this week. Once I did a couple of years ago. Andrew Wakefield and Celebrity. That's gone. That's another one gone. I remember a story of one of the scientists that worked in a nuclear power plant used to go swimming in the Ever. This is Galen Windsor. That's what he did. He has pictures of him doing it. So basically what he's saying is the beginnings of all this nonsense, this corporatism that's taken over control of how our trade, exchange and domestic systems, was done so by creating this false idea of health and safety. And that because the nuclear was seen as the most dangerous, that's where it kicked off. That's where they started it. And he would go in apeshit. That video is essential watching. Essential. In the same way as oil isn't a fossil fuel. Another post I've got on my website, essential video to watch. You know, the Rothschilds blagged the massive meet in Geneva back in the late 1800s with all the money, etc., to include oil as a fossil fuel. It's not. It's like the blood of the earth. It completely replenishes itself. If you empty a well, leave it for 5 years, go back, it's as full as it were when you found it. That's how it works. Coal, as I've understood, is dried oil seams. That's what it is. It's got nothing to do with dinosaurs that never existed. It's a fantasy, which is why they never find fossils of any dinosaur. They find mammoths, they find saber-toothed tigers, they find some strange bird. But if you look at the skeletal structure of any dinosaur that they've put in your face, the birds is what they've done. They've just nicked it. So when I looked into this, because I know I brought this to the internet about 12 years ago, this idea that there were no dinosaurs. Because I watched the guys that was out there then that picked it up off me and run with it. So it was me that pulled that out back in the day because we explored it. I'd never been happy with it. I mentioned it to one of my colleagues who laughed at me and thought I was a complete dick, asking, well, why have BBC spent millions on these dinosaur programs? I said, because they're programming the kids. It's removing ancient history and putting in a new blag. So when she got excited, she started investigating. First thing we found, every single find in the early days, every single find of airborne that was nothing to do with dinosaur, but somebody go, just imagine if that was a that'd mean this thing were a monster. Every single find was headed by a Methodist preacher. Every single one. You did not find any dinosaur finds, or so-called, that didn't have finding it, a Methodist preacher. And as I've said to you all, Methodism was the program to completely change the idea of what Christianity was in the masses in order they could get them ready to work in the mills as slaves back in the 1700s. That's what it were all about. It were a programme, a mind job on Protestant England. This is why the Industrial Revolution was put here, because they managed to persuade the Protestants that they no longer needed the sacred feminine, because it were all about the patriarchal system, which is what the Old Testament is. The Old Testament is the philosophy to subvert the sacred feminine and put it under the male, the masculine. That's it. That's what it did. It took the balance completely away. The original church, or you could say the man, Jesus, forget all the pomp and circumstance and garbage that they put up about him, just a smart ass, a smart lad. You can take the Druids, they're clear, he was one of their initiates, off he went. You know what I mean? This is why we're white. This is why we're white guy. You know, he was preaching all over Middle East, India, etc. Against he was reinstituting the sacred feminine as an idea, a way to live. Yeah. Now all girls out there are going, well, I'm a girl, so I'm right. No, you're a woman. You are a different breed from a female. Probably going to get shot when I walk out my door in the morning. But this is what we're going to get into in a little bit. I'm not going to just leave you with that. I'm going to explore it a little bit with you to show you that a woman is a lesser critter than the female, okay, of the original creation. And it was to set up this patriarch system, to subvert the feminine in this world and raise the mad, psychotic masculine all on its own to run the show. And look what we've had ever since. So there we go. Anyway, where are we? So yeah, if you remember in a scientist, it was actually Galen. He's a physicist that actually did that. He eats plutonium on stage because you have to weaponize it. Until it's weaponized in a particular way, it can't be radioactive. It's inert. So I listened to the Elite Insider recently. He did say all the distraction exactly that, reassuring of his belief, which I lean towards. Did see Galen Windsor, very interesting. Yeah, the Elite Insider, as we've moved forward since those explorations we did, so many times when I'm looking at new stuff and his thing comes back to mind. But remember this about what he said, and this is most important. He made it very clear that very few of the elite ruling families are operating according to how they should be. He made that very clear. So none of them are. They're all running around trying to grab before this Phoenix event. That's what he said. He told us this. So you don't need to hold allegiance to any of these families because none of them are operating correctly. And he made it very clear that English wasn't even his third language. Yeah? So, and these are ruling families. They're not. The ruling families are not what we would think they are. Far from it. And one of our, was it Disraeli? One of them said something in that sense that, you know, the people that run this world are not what you think. Because they're not. These are Sufis. These are Magi. Sufis areas, but of the Persian ilk, the ones that broke off from where the areas were in the Caucasus, went east, came south, took over India, right across into Persia. The origins of the Mongols, Genghis and all these, the Tartars. Now, again, Tartars were brought in. This garbage about Tartaria being the global empire before. And we're going to explore what I see as what it is they're hiding from us, okay? And I'll just run through what you're saying and then we'll have a look at it. We'll get cracked on. So yeah, it's worth going back to that elite, those two videos we did about the Elite Insider. You know, I believe that guy were real, and I believe he were doing some good there because, you know, if you're smart, if you're intelligent, you cannot poo-poo anything he says, really. Yeah, and like you've got to be a fruit bat if you do, down at the bottom end of the game. This is it. It's okay. Anthony, okay. What entity just recently used the most electric energy over in one day? CERN. Well, do we know that? Do we actually really? I know they're going to do a bigger one, aren't they? They want to do a bigger one. It pretty much encapsulates Swiss. I'm wondering if there's something going on here where the Swiss are being attacked because of the neutrality, and that this, whatever it is they're doing with this underground system, because when you look at what they want, how they want to expand it, it takes a big chunk of Switzerland underneath. I'm wondering if they're trying to create some kind of weapon that can sort of subdue Switzerland, is what I'm thinking. Now I know everybody goes, anybody that's any nation that gives itself, its people, the freedom to choose the way is going to accrue everybody that's been blocked and suppressed in their own nation. You're going to set it up in them nations. That doesn't necessarily mean the nation itself and its people are evil, does it? Just like London, we get blamed, England gets blamed because of London. Well, the inner city of London has got nothing to do, it's a sovereign state. And it's the headquarters of the East India Company and its navy and finance. Venetians, Phoenicians. And I think I've said this before. I really do see that the Phoenicians and Egyptians were the same, and that the Phoenicians were the naval force of the Egyptians. Because when you look at the Phoenicians' glyphs, so much of it is Egyptian. Loads of it, absolutely tons of it. You know, it's... so for me, the Phoenicians were the Egyptian navy. Now, whether they split, broke away, I don't know. And maybe that's why they were sent to the entire Carthage at different times. Maybe at some point in the day, there was a big split. Well, we know it happened with Akhenaten, but the Phoenicians were there way before Akhenaten. So and you know, the Phoenician, we know that they were in the Americas. We know that the Egyptians were in the Americas because we've got cocaine in the sarcophagi. So, and again, it goes back to this global empire that they're annihilating from our minds and history. And then they've given you this false idiom that it's Tartarian Empire. Absolute garbage. Tartars were known to be slavers and quite an evil bunch. And it wasn't a very big place. And what it could be is, as we've explored the New Jerusalem over there in the Ukraine, could also be another move in order to big up this bunch of Johnny-come-latelys that run Israel, this particular group. You know, it all works in sync like that when you take it on board in that way. Worth watching original bomb footage from 44. It's remastered. Doesn't stand up to 4K, freeze frame, etc. Pink Floyd, psychedelic light show. Well, I mean, I've read stuff that suggests that in Japanese libraries, there were no Nagasaki nuclear bomb. That what they actually did, or it wasn't the bomb that created the thing. That Nagasaki had been completely set up with ground fire bombs. And that's in the Japanese libraries, or was. So again, why would they do that? Well, as Galen says, and as I learned in nuclear, chemical and biological warfare, they're nowhere near as powerful as people think. We don't have any. We rent it off America. But we pay for it. Billions and billions. But we don't have the codes to set anything off. So who owns these nuclear? Who owns this nuclear tech? Who owns these submarines? Because we don't. America doesn't. Something else owns this, and that's the Prussian secret society military. They own everything. We pay for it. We man it. We build it. They have it. They own it. And who's going to argue? How are you going to argue that? Are you going to take it off them? No. I used to be a skip driver. Asbestos was moved in red closed skips and cost a pretty penny. Tack Taylor Asbestos Company was over the road from my home, now a housing estate. Well, yeah, I mean, I worked at John Lang's back in the day when they started off with this asbestos garbage. And so what us builders have been doing forever, all of a sudden, every contract had Oh, an asbestos unit. So in came these, what were just labourers, with all this fancy garbage on, all these specialist cabins and garbage and pish. And we just used to laugh. Everybody laughed at it, apart from fruit bats, of course. They thought it was serious because it was stupid. But the majority of guys on the sites knew it was fucking bullshit. Absolute bollocks. However, the blue stuff, that's a different metal. You won't want to be chowing on that, let's put it that way. But yeah, it's a con. It's an absolute con. It will irritate your lungs with asbestos if you're breathing in the dust. But as soon as you're out of the dust, it's gone. And your body will expel it. It's called the flu. So any garbage that goes in your respiratory system is what the flu's all about. It's getting rid of it. All the material that survived Tokyo firebombing survived the Nagasaki Hiroshima attacks. Hiroshima was the poorest prefecture with the least built-up infrastructure. Well, I studied back in the day that from the Japanese libraries, what was in there was the fact that the entire thing was set up firebombs on the ground. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. It wasn't any kind of nuclear bomb that did that damage. So make of that as you wish. Yeah, it's bullshit, asbestos. Adenaka asbestos license, week-long course. Crocodilite was allegedly naughty, didn't use anything that committed some blah, 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 blah. Well, look what they're doing now. They're saying that thermalite blocks cancer causing. Well, we all used to sew it with a knife, with a saw. You know, what if this is all true, they've done their best to try and kill builders off, I'll tell you that now. Which they had to. In the 70s, the British economy, 75% of the English economy was construction. And it were in private hands. That was one of the biggest powerful things in this nation. Health and safety took care of that, has it not? Bournefield Construction and its like and its ilk have bankrupted so many private-owned companies. You know, this is how it works. This is what they've done. Because you've all been played out. With nails, you know, lips. That's what's important to people today. And the bankrupt teams, administrators have been running riot. US Army's way worse. What do you mean way worse as in? Well, the problem America's got is because now Trump's installed this left-right divide, nobody trusts anybody. No institution in America now is trusting each other. It's screwed. Perfect for the rise of another New Deal. Something's got to happen. This Biden's a complete fruitcake. Trump's also another fruitcake. It's but a lot of Americans suck into it because you're not looking properly. You're not looking. Hospitals are picked up in the skips from mini double bagged and blah, 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 blah. Well, they make a fortune, don't they? Guys are charging. Look, so let's just say average garage with an old asbestos roof on. Guys are charging $1,000 just to take the roof off. I did one a couple of years ago. It didn't cost me a penny to get rid of the asbestos. Because I went to the tip, told him the crack. He gave me the Visqueen and the bags. All I had to buy was the tape. And then it cost me the 2 hours pulling it down, wrapping it up, and fuel to get to tip. Builders out there are charging you numpties £1,000 to take away because they've got you believing that it's dangerous. It's not dangerous. It's dust, just like any other dust. If you don't smoke, it'll get straight to your lungs because you've no mucus. And you'll have an effect. But as soon as you stop, get away, it'll go. I'm not playing football, I can assure you. I have nothing against girls playing football. I'm all about equality. But that's not what this is doing, is it? I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The way things are going. But there's a method to why they are disarming the males in the West. There's a reason for it. And you females, or women, not females, females would know the difference, which we're going to get to in a minute. You women are are the cause. You are demasculating the very thing you need down the line, because you're not watching what's going on with all these immigrants. You have no idea what mindset these are. Even the Muslims here call them mangies. The Muslims that were born here can't stand them. They call them mangies, freshies, thick as pig shit. They are. But they're programmed to one end, and one end only. So, of course, the downside to the British Muslims is they're utilising it and slowly but surely being pulled into this nonsense that's going to turn on them. And it is going to turn on you. My brother's lad just posted on HMS Prince of Wales, his first posting after passing out. Well, they've got him all excited. Yeah, it's just... It's health and safety, all this stuff, so they have to invent something. And the way that it goes in is because straight away they'll say, have you done this in 25 years ago? You've got a claim. Lawyers are making money, courts are making money, health and safety is in giving you more rules and regulations. They set up a body that you have to join, prove yourself worthy. You can put in for contracts. Not to the state anymore, your council, to the private companies that are running as outsourced providers, your domestic system. Where are we? Gumshoe swimming at Sellafield. Good. I don't think I've seen him say that, but fine if that's the case. Well, one of my old sister-in-law worked at Cumbria, Sellafield. You know? Yeah, especially in... Well, I won't be chewing on them brake pads, to be honest. They are pretty minging, and that is the blue stuff in it. That's the blue. That is a bit more of a different thing. I wouldn't be trusting that. Evening, Andy. Gary, how you doing, mate, in car truck brake? Yeah. Exactly. We've all got it in us, but the thing is about our bodies is our biological system is nothing other than a filter. That's what it is. It's filtering everything from what you take in from food, what you're breathing in from the air, what your skin's coming into contact with. Your body is filtering out what's no good for it, which is why you've got to keep your liver in perfect order. Because if your liver's not working, your blood's not working, every organ's getting that coded blood. And we looked at that, didn't we, last week? With the Eye of Horus and Eye of Ra, how that works. So it's really important that you help your body to filter by not putting shit in it in the first place. But knowing full well that there are shit going in because they're spraying it everywhere. Your body, if you limit the amount you're taking consciously, your body can deal with it. And it can deal with it well. But the most important for me is the best water you can have. You keep your body filled with good water, i.e. water that has no toxins in that your body has to deal with, and you're flushing. You're flushing it out left, right and centre. And you can test that with your piss. Smell it. Observe the colour. Or, your pee and your other side is your best way of working out what's going on with your organs. And you only need to do a little bit of research to start to get a picture of if your pee's doing this, that's happening. If your shit's doing that, this is happening. But it's simple. It's a science. And your body is just a biological system, a machine. And just like any machine, when you know it inside out, you can fix it. And not only can you fix it, by doing certain things, you can keep it alive and so it doesn't break. It's all servicing, oil changes, etc. It's no different with your body. It's the same thing. It's just that you happen to be stuck in it. So it's even more important than you keep it in good order, Well, I don't think they use asbestos brakes now, do they? They use something else. Anyway, right. So that's that. So what I'm going to just look at here, because I've been thunking a bit this week. I know it's dangerous, but I have been thunking. And I sort of thought to myself, let's have a look at this. What the hell went wrong? Way back. Something went seriously wrong. And the evidence of that is we have a massive civilization antediluvian in which we get the Great Pyramids and all the pyramids across the world. That shows it were global. It was a global enterprise and it were all over the world. Now we have another one, don't we? We have another one that they're destroying, all the architecture that we see destroyed, and they've shoved it as an idea that it's a Tartarian empire. I say, no, it's not. I say what the empire is that they're hiding is what were formed by taking on what the man Jesus brought. Now, I'm not talking about the fantasy side of it, the garbage. I'm talking about the enlightened guy showing for what it is the patriarchal system. Okay? This is why his mother and his Flossie are important to the story. Because he were reinstituting the sacred feminine into this system. And in my opinion, what was built from that, forget the Vatican, because Rome, the church, was the monasteries. The empire was in Constantinople. Yeah, the church side of things in Europe was the monasteries. And the biggest monastery in those days was at Chalon, in Burgundy. That was the biggest monastery, by far. And it was the chief. So something was built off that doctrine that created this huge global empire. All this architecture that people speak about and say it was Tartarian, it was nothing of the sort. It was whatever we created. Because you look at the architecture, a lot of it, you look at Constantinople, that's where it comes from. And the Germans excelled at it, which is why they bombed the shit out of Dresden. Because Dresden was a fine example of that old ancient architecture. So I would say to you that the ancient empire that they're busy destroying was an empire based on the reintroduction of the sacred feminine. And that would be the Queen of Heaven, would it not? Or Mother Mary Isis. Okay? Now, that was Christendom. And we've seen Crusades, but the Vikings were a big part of this as well. They did still hold the sacred feminine in place because they held in revere the female warriors. They did. And it was an equality thing. It wasn't the one in charge of another. It was on an equal term. And that the male's role was to raise up and keep in situ the balance of the feminine, not the woman. Now, let's go back to woman. What's the difference between female and woman? The original doctrine is clear, man, male, female. That's when we were equal. Adam and Eve. Okay, what was that all about? Well, let's get into the nitty-gritty. And if you haven't studied the Zohar and the Kabbalah, this might seem a bit off the wall. I have done a video on it a couple of years ago. However, so basically Lilith was... let me start again. Some bunch of scientists created this new critter. And they called it the Adamu. Okay, the Adam. Now, they had a problem, okay, because he was a bit backward, a bit not right. And the female that was his wife said, "Get stuffed. I'm not living below you, beneath you. Equal terms." But this isn't what they were creating. They were creating a new breed of female, a woman. Because, of course, Lilith said, "Piss off, I'm out of here. You can kiss my ass." Now, when you get into the Zohar, because this is where these priesthood are getting ready to annihilate everything born of Adam, because Adam then started to shag at everything in the garden. Animals, frogs, everything he could get his winkle in, Adam was screwing it. So he would tap. This creature that they created were a bit tapped. they brought in one of the Eves, who said, yeah, I'll do what you say. But then she weren't on board proper, was she? Because obviously she did something else a bit naughty. So she was pretending. So the Eve was, unlike Lilith, who said, don't talk out your ass if you think I'm lying under you like that. Forget it. Equal terms. This Eve thought, well, I might get something here if I pretend. So she pretended she'd do what he said. And that new female became a woman. Somebody who would listen and do exactly what the male said. And bearing in mind this male were insane, he shagged everything. Animals, a lot. You know, this is why you get into Zohar, they call him the unnecessary. Yeah, Adam the unnecessary. So all born of that Adam is said to be unnecessary enough to be killed off. Goyim. Because their Adam's a different Adam. Yeah, we've gone through all this. So I'm not going to go through that again. Okay? Adam Kadmon is their version of Adam. And of course, this Adam, their version, is a transgender. A hermaphrodite. Right? So, anyway. So that's where we've got. So, they've created this patriarchal system, which is the Old Testament, in its entirety, had to have this new system, this Adam, to create this new female. One who wasn't equal, but one who did what it was told. And that creature was called a woman. Yeah? Now, if I'm correct, that this empire that they're hiding, and have been hiding for a long time, was in fact what was built on the back of the systems that were set up in Rome, inclusive of the sacred feminine again. Then the Crusades, as I've said before, was all about reinstalling the patriarchal system back in Christendom, giving the patriarchs, the priesthood, power again. So you can see this in religion, even Christianity now after the Crusades. As they started to install this subversion of the sacred feminine, they've created these three religions. They created, though there were one already, Christianity shifted off that because it brought back the sacred feminine, and then they created Islam. And the battle between the reason why the Jews and the Muslims hate each other is because it's a battle for who's going to control this patriarchal system, New World Order. That's the battle. They're the same. You study the Gnosis, they're exactly the same. Now, a lot of people will say because the Muslims have badly copied what the Jews had written. And that, in some cases, as I've studied, is correct. It's pretty obvious that is what's happening. So you've got two parts of this so-called biblical tradition, because fighting for supremacy, and it's all at the expense of what was Christendom. But through the creation, the destruction of the original church ideology, which included the feminine side of life, through the Crusades, they reinforced again the Old Testament in the West through Protestantism. So the Reformation, as I said many years ago, was just an elite setup in order they could create another empire that didn't look like it were Holy See controlled. And then slowly but surely they moved them off Christendom and back into the Old Testament, where women are subjugated. Women are a lesser creature. You know what I mean? And what do the men do? On license. Once they've got the woman subdued, yeah, they're doing the Adam bit, wanting to shag everything. You get it? You're starting to see. So the Old Testament is the patriarchal system. The New Testament is the balancing. And that got, in my opinion, smashed to pieces many, many moons ago. Why has this happened, people say? Well, if you listen to the religious people, they say, it's you, the flock, you're evil, you've sinned, you've done this, you've done that. A bit like that nut job from London that we looked at the other week. Giving it the big, you've left your religion, blah, 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 and you're spreading it. No, here in Christendom, the females have said, because there's a rise of the sacred feminine, a lot of the problems we're having in these marriages is because the males are pathetic You know, they're copying the dad, who's copying his dad. And the women are saying, fuck that. I'm not putting up with that. I'm not sitting at S putting up with what my mother put up with while you were out getting pissed, playing fucking football, watching football, living your entire life around football, spending all your money on football. I'm not having it. Piss off. Rightly so. But of course there's a trap to this. Now, the state's daddy to your offspring. So that's a big part of what's going on here. Because what's happened in Christendom is we've realised that the priests, the bishops, the cardinals and all these fruit bats, they're the ones that have fucked Christendom. Not the flock. The religious people themselves. Because they haven't upheld the reality of it. They've upheld the fantasy. The garbage to move you back into the patriarchal system. Because they're all males, aren't they? You know, that's why they stopped the priests in Christendom from getting married. Protestants tried to put it back to some kind of balance, but unfortunately, the formation of Protestantism was based entirely on Judas' money. So whatever good it was trying to do, just more and more put it into the hands of this priesthood. And now they're bringing in the uber patriarchal religious system as immigration everywhere, while they kill off the natives, or not kill them off, while they encourage the natives to commit Eric Kerry. This is what's going on. So in Christendom, what's happened is we the flock have said, well, not we the flock, because I would never be the flock, have said, you're all fucked, you're lying to us, you're full of shit, we're going to seek the kingdom within, which is what our teacher told us to do. Did he not? And when you start to seek the kingdom within, you start to recognise that within you, as much as you might be a male, you've also got a feminine trait. You can be gentle. You're happy to let your wife be on equal terms with you, provided she's not a complete fruit bat. And we're talking about females here, not women. Majority of the people out there today are women. They're a lesser. You're a lesser, which is why you're promoting this transgender stuff, homosexuality, which of course, you know what people do it's not. I don't have a problem with homosexuality. If that's what you want to do in private and it's consensual between 3, 5, 10, however many you want to get on, go it on. Where I have a problem is you teach my child that that's normal and you've got a problem. So that's the only problem I have. It's not with the fact that we have homosexual. They're as old as time. It's not something brand new. But to promote it on top of heterosexuality, which is what gives you procreation, essential, isn't it, for the upkeep of your race and nation and culture, that I don't like. And now look what's happened. People are so angry at what they've seen happen in the last 10 years with this promotion of this transgender agenda. Nobody now is going to pay a blind bit of attention to the fact this new bug nonsense is aimed entirely at that part of the population. Because people now are blaming that section of society for actually installing this stuff in the schools. So they're going for the soft target on the back of the fact that the whole bug script has been moved into AIDS, HIV. Can you see that going on? So we can look at Adam and Eve again in another symbolic way. Yeah, it removed the female and give us the woman. Yeah. So I just thought that were amazing and fantastic, because I am amazing and fantastic. I have told you this, and if you don't believe me, I've got a letter off my grandma. Couldn't get one off my mother because she thinks I'm insane, but my grandma gave me one, and I'm sticking to it. So that's it. So that pretty much. No, wait a minute. 30 degrees. So somebody sent me this earlier in the week. So this is just interesting on the 30. Why the 369? Okay. A bit of conjecture on my part in some points, but it's worth putting before you because you guys out there are pretty smart cookies. So the North Wall and the Great Pyramid is 30 degrees to the equator. Now when you draw a line on that 30-degree line on the Earth, whether you want to go around it or you want to pretend it's flat, yeah? All the major monuments from pyramid days are on that line. 30 degrees is it's the Egyptian royal cubit. Now when you transfer that to a pendulum, as in a measure, a 30-degree angle, it's 1 second exactly. So this is where you find out. The 30 degrees breaks up the 12 houses of the zodiac. It gives you the 12 hours of your clock. So this is where your time was formed. Yeah? And this is off the Royal Egyptian cubit. Okay? So it's a measure of time. 12-hour day, everything's 12. So I thought to myself, well, how can I look at... So Tesla gives us his 369. How does that work? Would that work in this system? So 3 times 12 is 18. That's your 9. 360 days a year is your 6369. Now, of course, we're well aware that at some point back in time, recorded in Egypt as the 5 Neters, the 5 epogomenal days, that all of a sudden were upon us, Isis, Osiris, etc. Now, this is a thought I had this week. Now, I don't know whether this is just off the wall, but I'm going to run it by you. So, we've looked at Claudio's Phoenix, have we not? And it's all about Isis, Osiris, is it not? Set. Okay? So these 5 Neters is that, in my opinion. It's this. So we're looking at 5 extra days. Now, we know that the calendars they've done, they've screwed it up every which way they can. Because it doesn't fit. Nothing fits. So I thought, maybe, is it possible? So we've got the Ouroboros, okay, the snake that's constantly eating its tail. Now, Claudio's brought this idea of 558, Phoenix cycle, on your own personal spiritual level. So that would look, and 4 of those events happen in an age. So that's Pisces, Aquarius, whatever age. In that particular time scale, 30 degrees on an age side is 1 age. And I would say, he says that this Phoenix on a personal spiritual level only happens once. No, 4 times in that age. Is these 5 epochomenal days, are they only attributed to these 4 events? And that this event itself, I might put me on arse here, get ready. So these 5 extra days were instituted into what was a closed system after the fall and the punishment. So we were fixed within this Ouroboros. Are these 5 days, 4 times in an age, at 558 years, a point in which the Ouroboros opens, and opens a gateway for those in that age that have proved themselves worthy, and then it closes again. Is that what these 5... And Sirius, when I studied all this years ago, Sirius was very important in relation to how they're trying to understand what the hell these 5 new days were. Where the Earth shifted off its axis a bit, did its precession change slightly? So I just thought I'd run that by you because it gives us your 369. Nobody can argue the 30 being so important as a measure for how we measure time. Astrologically and on the clock, down to the second, you know. Interesting, I thought. So I thought I'd share that with you. Just to see how that pans out. Whether it's got anything of value, I'm not so sure. But I thought it was worth having a goof on, cat, and so we put that there. Now then, chaps and chapesses, what's going down here, what you're saying? If you've got any questions, fire them on. Fire them on. Andrew says, evening all. Used to use a chart with the colour of your pee to tell if you are dehydrated. Your pee will tell you everything. You have to smell it. Remember what we said last time. The biggest percentage of your ability as a sense is smell. That's why dogs and animals smell everything. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to smell everything. If I had something new, the first thing I do is smell it. I mean, I know my father used to go mad if he saw me smelling stuff. For some reason, he thought that must have meant lesser on me. But it's your main sense, is smell. It's your main sensory organ. So smell your piss. You know, smell it. You'll learn things. You just learn stuff, honestly. No chat on cannabis, Sean. You mentioned last week my favourite subject didn't move to Holland in the 90s for nothing. Brother helping people with cancer now find what they need. Well, the stuff I've been doing is I can show you. It doesn't show. So it doesn't use the circuit. It's hemp oil, Hoffigal. Yeah, 1,000 milligrams. Alright? Now I've been, I won't say promoting this, but if people have problems or their animals are having problems, this is what I suggest. Now, I said to them, one a day. Take it before you go to bed. That way, you're not dozy in the day, and if you're burping it back, you're fast asleep, you don't really care. 2 dogs. Sorted. 2 people. 1 person that was stage 4. And she took it for 7 weeks, 1 a night. And when she got back to her appointment, it had gone. But they still persuaded her to give them 40 grand by going on the chemo. So that's what I couldn't show you last week because the camera went off. It works, people. Right? And it's just a capsule. Nothing fancy. But as my son-in-law has leukemia, and it's like 5 years, and I've seen them mess some of these oils that some lads are selling. And they're making a fucking fortune, by the way. Right? Paying the thing I charged for them. That was it. Only because I'm giving something, there has to be a return, and it were £1 a shot. So it were £14 a fortnight, of course, that they were taking. And it works. But some of these arseholes are charging £500, £600, £700 for a dose of this oil. And I've seen what it does. It's not good. Some of it can screw your mind up. So be careful. But that's specifically hemp oil. So, and it's clean. It's clean. There's no darkness to it or anything. It's just clean. So that's what I use. I'm not saying I know everything about everything else, but I do know what I've seen with my own eyes in relation to my son-in-law. And some of it's not good. And they're charging a fortune. So some of you guys, some guys out there are assholes. You know? And because if you're in a desperate situation, you're only going to go to them because that's all that you think it is. And it's not. There's more to it than that. Like one person once said to me, I should be alright, mate. I smoke weed. I'm like, no, I don't think smoking it's what does it, mate. You know, but people have a false idea about this CBD. And I think unscrupulous tossbags are capitalising on that. Weren't Adam and Eve and Lily created? No, that's Eve was said to be created as one. From a rib. What a load of old pish. You know, it's garbage. It's a fantasy in order they can subvert and subdue the sacred feminine and boys can play out. That's what it were originally. Be divine Adam Cadman being the alleged fulgur. No, I don't know what you've read there, mate. It sounds to me like you've read some priesthood garbage to take it off the track. You've got to study the Zohar. I did all these donkeys years ago. And I'm talking many moons ago. And found it to be rather putrid. All of it. It was just putrid shit, garbage. Play school stuff. You know, Ladybird books made more sense. But these people believe it. Make no mistake about it. Well, it will, because it makes them, it bigs them up and turns you lot into goyim. You know? Of course they're going to love it. Let's have a look. Well, they've had to turn... Obviously, they're going to have to turn Lilith into a demon, aren't they? Yeah? You have to do. Anything that moves against the patriarchal system has to be seen as demonic. Well, yeah, they say sexual deviancy, but... Look, the elites, forever and ever and ever, they're not subject to the terror that everybody has about sex. I mean, they don't. And they never have. You know what I mean? They never have. It's just, I mean, you go to Sodom and Gomorrah, when you actually get into Sodom and Gomorrah, it weren't about debauchery. It was strange flesh. And it's not 100% clear what they're talking about, but the main issue as to why Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed was something to do more in tune with what they were doing with strange flesh. Whatever that might mean. You've really got to look at the words that are being used and the narrative that the words are describing, not the narrative that the biblical scholars have given you. In pre-rabbinic, Aleph Bet of Ben Sirach goes into Lilith, the angels of health, Senoi Sensory and Shamanglof, but it's somewhat satirical. Well, I mean, it's the whole Kabbalistic system is made specifically so that nobody understands it correctly. They think they do, but only the priest will understand it. The cross, the crossing, they shifted it, they flipped it. Left, right, top down. That's what they've done. And it's a system specifically set to make you believe you understand it so that you'll operate on it. America's set up on it, left, right. The left-right paradigm is the Kabbalistic tree in its shitty form. You look at the eyes again. We've got left, right, male, female, raw, Horus, whatever which way you want to look at it. But it's duality. It's existing in two sides rather than bringing it together into one. So Ra's ethos playing in this realm of Horus, the man form. At the moment, everybody's a human because they're operating just on the Horus, through the eye of Horus. Ra doesn't get a look in. But the trick is to have the backdrop to your everything being coming through Ra, and you're creating down here through the Horus eye. It's going to be, it's divine, isn't it? It's classed as a divine action. What you're doing is coming from the heavens. Or anyway, I don't want to go up my ass. I don't want to pontificate and pretend I'm the all-seeing everything, because I'm not. But I've studied a lot of stuff, and I have quite an insight, it would appear, when I look at things. So that's how I see it. Let's wait and see how it goes, but let's have a look here. Apparently the Nazarene were cross-dressing assassins. Iscariot isn't a name. It's not. Or is the only guy bloody Bible with a surname. See, the 30 pieces of silver is referencing the moon. You know, the way that they... What did the elite insider say? Jesus wasn't the Christ. He wasn't. He was a man. He said himself. Son of man, he said. Not son of human, son of man. That's what he said. And he said his Father's kingdom is within. Did he not? With his mother strapped to him as well. And his chick. The two Marys. We've been force-fed all shit. Force-fed it. Priests have believed it. Bishops have believed it. Well, bishops are bishops because they believed it. So if you're looking for cause of why the religion has failed here, is because the priests, the bishops, the cardinals, the popes, the vicars didn't give a shit. They were too busy doing whatever they were doing. but they certainly weren't focused on what is and what isn't. The flock just said, kiss my ass, we're out of here. You're off your head. We'll seek the kingdom within. That's what the Christendom, that's what the West is doing. And they're trying to install this patriarchal system to stop you out there rebalancing the sacred feminine with the masculine inside of all of us. And they're doing that by instituting all these ancient mindset cultures, which is fine for them being where they live. There's nothing wrong with that. Sharia law all day in a Muslim country. Sharia law here breaks every single international covenant, and it breaks the laws of England. That shows me you're not Muslims. You're kafir, because the Quran is clear. Obey the laws of the host nation, not the bankrupt corporation. That's corporate, that's person. And that's a fact. It's a fact of life. That is a fact of defining the Quran. So, no, that's it. That's the way it is. This is where we're at here. You're trying to find the kingdom within. They're doing everything they can, the priesthood, to stop you. But of course, because of these infractions on the international law and the laws of all the nations that they're in, if China can be raised up as they're trying, that's what will wipe Islam off the face of the earth, which again is prophesied as potential in the Quran itself. So I'm only speaking what is in the book. And I say this and I'll say it again. The Sharia today does not represent the book. If you're following Sharia, you're not following the book, you're not a Muslim. Not because I say, because your fucking book says. Your prophet says. That's what he says. That's what was written. And if the Sharia doesn't represent it, which it doesn't, because it's pushing you to do everything against it, commit fraud, everything that goes against biblical law, because you're doing battle with the Jews, because it's a battle between which bunch, you don't stand a chance against this priesthood. This priesthood is so evil in its intelligence. It's just beyond belief. It's beyond belief how ridiculously sneaky this priesthood is. Anyway, CBD takes away the high. Well, what I have with this, the reports back, is if they take it in the day, because this particular lady was very sore in her nether regions. She couldn't sit down. That had a massive effect. So she started taking odd one in day, but it made her very drowsy. Son-in-law as well, he was taking it, it made him drowsy in the day. So it does have an effect. It's not the high that you get when you smoke it, but it does make you drowsy. Which I once ate cannabis years ago and forgot I'd ate it. And we ate on pot, I ate on a night out, and a mate of mine, as he's walking past me, he just shoved this in my mouth. And I just ate it and not thought, and then I forgot. And it got to about, I don't know, 10:30, 11 o'clock, and I was nearly passing out. And I'm going, I don't know what's up with me. They're only getting, you just ate a shitload of cannabis. I'm like, yeah, really? So that's what it does to you. It does make you go to sleep if you eat it. And that was obviously with cannabis, not this skunk stuff. I don't know what it'd be like if you ate that skunk. How this cube door opening is like the Ouroboros opening, you're hypnotised on interesting. There's got to be something about these 5 ecumenical days that they're hiding. And it's clear that the calendars don't match up. It's clear on 365 every year. They don't. It doesn't match up. Nothing matches up. So, and it's just, there's more to it, obviously, and it would take a lot more study, but that's what I sort of thought this week as I've been mulling on this Phoenix astrological. Yeah. Very interesting. Let's have a look. Rick Simpson protocol shown your opinion. Rick Simpson. Who's that? Who's he? Rick Simpson protocol. I don't think I've heard of that. If you tell me, I might have, but not remember it as that. But I'm not sure what you mean there, my old China. They're making oil with the leaf and trimmings. I only use white widow bud and nothing else. Well, white widow skunk. It's not cannabis. Is it? It's not cannabis. Nothing that anybody's smoking today is cannabis. None of it. So you're not even on cannabis. You're not on hemp. It's not hemp. It's not cannabis. And that could be the reason why some of these oils that I'm witnessing are not good. It's not doing what you'd expect it to do. So that might be worth considering as well. If you were creating hemp oil, it would just be from hemp plant. It wouldn't even need to flower, would it? You'd just crush up the stem and the leaf. You wouldn't need the flower. Well, actually, I'll hold off on that because I'm not an expert. I do know quite a few experts, but I don't know. I know the oil comes out of the actual stem and everything as well, doesn't it? It's the THC. The importance of the flower is the THC. Well, THC isn't the active ingredient in fighting cancer, is it? THC is the high when you're smoking. Or am I wrong? Is it the THC that's the active suppressor of cancer? Does anybody know that? You used to grow white widow on, but you smoked it. Well, white widow was very good back in its day, but most of this stuff today, as I've said, you're smoking chemicals. You're smoking chemistry. They're not flushing them. They're not flushing them, and they're growing it that quick. They're not curing it, because curing it will get rid of a lot of chemistry as well, which is why the Dutch cure it for 3 months. You're lucky if you get 10 minutes of a cure on this stuff today, because no sooner as they've grown it, want to sell it. And they're spraying. I mean, some of my Muslim mates were telling me that they're spraying it with heroin. And getting fat bag, sick man, sick. Heroin and your fucking weed. Rick Simpson. So what are you saying about Rick Simpson, bud? I'm not sure what's that. Have you watched all of Claudio the last 2 years? No. I haven't even hardly watched. I've watched probably about 10 of his videos. I haven't watched any this week. I haven't watched anybody's videos this week, to be fair. No, I haven't. I will do. I will do, but I haven't, no. So you broke your neck on morphine, and before I smoked a few big ones. You don't need painkillers. No, it does have that effect. Smoking it does have a lot of effects, but cannabinoids in it, don't they? They have a big part to play. Aren't some of them good for you, and some of them not? The THC itself, it isn't necessarily the best thing for you, or am I wrong? You're saying widow is the original cannabis? Are you sure? I mean, I don't know. I'd have to take your word for that. I don't know. As I remember it, because all we smoked back in the day, so 80s, 90s, Rocky, black, red Leb, which were black, with a few different Lebanese thingies, Slate. They were the main cannabis that everybody was smoking. And it was clean. It was very, very clean. And then they started to play with the black, putting diesel in it and shit like that. So that killed it. But then the first I ever knew a skunk, it was a mate of mine grew it. Super skunk, he grew. I've never stunk anything. It stank to high heaven. And that was my first use of skunk, but that's probably about 94. No, maybe a bit more than that. 96, 95, I don't know. No, it might have been 94-ish, 95. And then they just wrecked the solid, as I recall. They put also a shit in it because they wanted everybody on the skunk. So that's the first stuff I would aware of. But I don't know. If you've been over Holland, they've been doing it for a long time. So So you're saying White Widow was the original? Fair dues, mate. I don't know. So no, I haven't watched all the colonial stuff, mate. I've probably watched about 10, and just in this short period. Because as soon as I watched that Law, because that's how I found, somebody sent it me this on the Supreme Law that we did the video on, and then I watched the Revelation one, Mother cloaked in the sun with the moon at her feet, and it was bingo, bing, and just, oh, this guy's cracked it. So obviously that's what filling my head. That's where my thoughts are. I'm trying to expand it. I'm remembering things from the past that I've studied. I'm playing with it, see if I can pull that into it as well. So I'm just trying to expand the thesis, as it were. But it's not really a thesis, is it? It's a fact when you look at the Egyptian addenda thing. I'm not pretending I know all these words, but anyway, you know what I mean. Try the audiobook, The Adam and Eve Story by Chan Thomas. It's a different perspective to your views. Yeah, but that's propaganda, sweet thing. You need to study the Zohar. That's where it comes from which you get the Kabbalah. You go to the source. If you are researching anything properly, you go to the source. Where did that data come from originally? Yeah, and then you'll get a name. Right, who's this fella? What's he connected to? What were people writing about him? You've got to source these things, because it's when you start to look at where it came from and who is that person. That's where you'll see what it's connected to, which secret societies, which individuals. Then you can see where it fits in the jigsaw. Where is it coming from? So then you can look at it again and say, okay, that serves that agenda. What have they changed? Because they've obviously picked up something more original, an older version of the data. How have they tweaked it to fit their narrative? That's how you've got to if you're researching, you've got to go back to source always. And so many of the books that we call old books, so many of them coming out of the Jesuit colleges. Now, we've explored the fact that the Jesuits since mid-1700s, and probably a little bit before, are not the original Jesuits. The original Jesuits were set up to undermine the Reformation. But they became so powerful because they were educating everybody, that we can see what they were actually starting to shift into when you look at what they were doing in South America. So they became a problem, but they became a power in their own right. And because they were dealing with education, they were the ones in contact with all the old documents, the old scribal works, etc. Not just held in the Vatican, but all over the world, because they were in China. And they were welcomed in China originally. They were very well respected with the original Jesuits, wherever they went. And my family on mother's side were all big Jesuits around here, because Stonyhurst in Lancashire was the power of the north. Interestingly, it were Henry VIII that facilitated it for the Jesuits to take it on. The man who supposedly opposing the church. No, he was just given another jurisdiction to create another church that could hoity-toity off colonising, conquering. Yeah? Without it coming back to the Holy See. Holy See being Medici, Pallavicini, Borgia, all the foreign heirs, all these big, old, ancient, Byzantine, Venetian, Genoan, Aryan families. Because most of them trace themselves back to Iran. Aryans. Yeah, the Aryans, not Persians. Aryans, before all the Persians took it. And I'm not saying I'm right, but if you're going to research something, you want the source of it. If you want to work out what's the propaganda, how's some work been propagandised to suit one side or the other. And again, I've said this, if you're studying a period in history, straight away you're studying, so like if you're studying something of English, you're studying it, blah, blah, and you're taking on, then you've got to look for the opposing force. And those, entering the arena, you get to see the sides, who the sides are, study what you're studying, but then you need to look at the other sides. What were they saying? Why was that battle on? And 9 times out of 10, that's where you can see. What you're studying and what's accepted is the victors. And generally the victor was the most violent of the conflict, not necessarily the most spiritual. They were the most insane. So you've always got to go back that way. You can't just half-bake. If you want to be a researcher, if you want to be an historian of any worth, you've got to go back to the source every single time. Spray with ground glass also to get the weight up. Is that what they're doing? Yeah, I remember back in the day when you smoke some and you get... Now that's dangerous because that burns your lungs. Yeah, you're right, I remember that. Back in the day they did. It's the balance of the THC with everything else. The would you have to know you're growing, mate. Yeah, I knew some good growers and it were all about clean. That's all. Because if it's clean, it will good on your mouth. See, where I was lucky, when they really started to crack everything up, you've got 2 big glands here. Right? You don't know about it. When it started, for me, I thought I had earache. But no matter what I poked in my lug, it weren't me ear. And I read it up and you've got 2 big glands here. And it was the poison in them that were kicking them off. So I was lucky. You know, if I was smoking something that was shit, they'd tell me. And then I'd express that to everybody I knew, just saying, I know it doesn't affect you that way, but I'm just telling you, there's shit in that stuff. You might want to think twice. Black's a resin, it is, yeah. 89, I started smoking in 89. Just before my last band cracked off. So, actually, but I started in 89, Christmas actually, in between Christmas and New Year. But I didn't smoke a lot, we'd just have a bit at a weekend. And it stopped us wanting to fight everybody. And we actually started to enjoy our nights out then. We were actually laughing a lot, having fun, as opposed to like you were in the 80s. Everybody was beating the shit out of everybody else and wrecking each other's Pringles, bending your rings, taking your chains off. It was just a mad free-for-all in the 80s. And honestly, the cannabis for me really changed everything. I actually started going out and enjoying myself. Now, when I stopped drinking, that was just completely different. It was just a totally different atmosphere again. And then we got the ecstasy time, didn't we? Excellent, really were. So yeah, cannabis back in the day did me a favour. It really did. And a lot of my mates, as they started to pick it up, same again. It removed you from that violent decade that was the 80s, and it shifted you in to the 90s. And so yeah, Stonehurst is a sick place. There's more Masons there. It's more of a Masonic place now. It's Stonehurst. Beautiful building, massive place. But that was the power of the North from the time of Henry VIII. During 9, you were arrested for growing 396 plants. Gee, hell, that's a lot of plants, eh? The hell did you keep them together? What did you get there then? You get your bum smacked? Or did they buy it off you? So I suppose the police said there were 4 million plants and they were worth 25 billion, did they? Like they do. Positronics in the dam. I was taught how to grow weed by 94, 99. That would take ages to trim. That's a lot of plants, man. Bloody Nora. 150 plants max under 4 times 600 watt. Well, one of my mates used to grow one. The greatest smoke you've ever had in your life. The cleansing. Oh, the only trouble is, if you've been on it for about 3 months, you couldn't function. It took you into La La Land. and you had to stop. It was that good. But clean is what it were all about for me when I used to really hammer the weed. That's all I cared about. Clean. Is it clean? Is it clean? And if it were clean, I'm happy with that. Because I never actually got stoned. I used to put everybody used to take the piss out of me because I used to put oil, you couldn't even see it. And all I wanted was to take the edge off, keep my aggression down, because I was quite an aggressive prick when I was younger. Not so much when I was at school, when I started drinking. And when I started going out and drinking, my character changed, it changed, it did. And it took that away from me. But I only wanted to take the edge off, because obviously I'm an active guy. I don't want a cabbage. Like people I knew used to get that much in it and then they'd fall asleep for an hour. And I'm like, what's the point? Why are you doing that if you want to just knock yourself out? No, I used to do it to take the edge off. And it made me feel warm. And it used to make life a lot more pleasant for me. That's why I was doing it and enjoyed it. So, New Pit had them on a cycle, used to turn about. Whoa, fucking hell, lad. What did you get done for that? You must have got banged up for that. So if your Schumann frequency is at 773, what I saw, then how can people heal themselves with 432 test the frequencies? Well, no, you're just getting the pure frequency. So all the frequencies on the solfeggio, they've took it off its how it should be for that perfect shape if you're using just on a plate. And each frequency, they've took it slightly off so you're not getting the correct frequency when you're picking it up. So it's not so much 773, it's each frequency is put back to its actual chord, its note, its root note, rather than offset. Trained. Yes, my friend in USA can only one plant. Schumann is 783, that's what I saw. Well, that's just your body resonating with the earth. That's the earth resonance. The birds, apparently, the songs of the birds is the songs of the earth, the different frequencies. So different sized birds have a different song because they're a different frequency. The smaller they are, the faster they are. Bigger they are, the slower they are. Which I thought were interesting, because if you actually sit in a forest, which I do often, and listen, just listen to the different sounds. It's good. I like doing that. 1,005 because of my disability. On 300 nog plants? Jesus, man, it's worth breaking your leg out there if you want to grow 396 pounds. £1,000, that's now, is it? Well, I'll tell you what it is. If it weren't for weed, these Western nations would have been in civil unrest a long time ago. It's only the weed and the fact that most people have an economy of their own that's preventing crime on a scale you wouldn't believe. Lightweight. They couldn't prove I was selling it. They didn't get my second phone. Well, that's fair enough. Now, if you're a man on your own land, it's not against the law. It's against regulation, statute as person. You can do what the shit you want if you're on a law deal. So what is 783? I'd like it living thing. It's the Schumann resonance is the frequency that the earth resonates at in its movement. That'll get flat earthers excited there. Well, they're all alien frequencies if you're receiving the pure note as opposed to the offset. It would, and they're chakra based, aren't they? So if you want to resonate, if you want to get your chakras spinning correctly, anti-clockwise, an opening, then using the solfeggio pure note would help in that respect. And you wouldn't have to do anything about it. It just automatically would resonate correctly. Well, if you're on your own land, Andy, mate, you're alright. No wonder you got away with it, and rightly so. But now knowing what you know, if you want to get back to going through 396 plants, you're in business. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's 2 hours and 10 minutes, and I have been gobbing off like a belter for that time. Let's hope we get a bit more sun before we end our summer. I'm not so sure that that's what's going to happen, but we can hope, can we not? So, you know what's coming next, chaps? I will say to you, till the next time.
electronic